So as Kama's been getting closer to release over here on the NA version of the game, the debate between Kama versus Jack has grown more and more fierce as, we're getting closer to this release, because people are like, well, Kama's good and all, but I have, NP1 Jack, NP2, 3, 4 Jack, because Kama's a limited servant, right? It's very hard to get multiple copies of her, because you can only pull for those copies when she's on Raid-Up. Once she goes away, good luck. You're not getting any more copies until she comes back for like another year. But Jack, on the other hand, is on every single banner. So every time you summon, you have a chance, however slim, to get another copy of Jack. And me personally, I have NP2 Jack. I've pulled 2 of them, right? So you're more likely to have like higher copies of Jack. And because of that, people get into this mindset of, well, because I have like an NP2, NP3, NP4 Jack, is it even worth summoning for Kama? Because at a basic fundamental level, they're both very similar, right? They're both quick single target assassins that are very good in challenge quests. They both do very big unga bunga damage. They both have a very powerful niche. For Kama, it's killing alter egos, and for Jack, it's killing females, right? So they're both very, very good servants in their own right, and I need people to understand that here at the beginning. In no way, over the course of this video, am I saying that either Kama or Jack are bad servants. I think they both do things better than the other. It's just overall, yes, I do think you should still attempt to summon for Kama because of her niche just being that good and how useful it's going to be going forward in the future. 2, just how good Kama is in general. But I'm not saying that like Jack is bad, because I understand that people are going to be like, well, you're telling me to summon for Kama, then I got a replacement. No, you're still going to use Jack in situations that over like Kama if you have her, right? But this is also like, if you don't have Jack and you're like, well, I'm not going to summon for Kama because I have the possibility of pulling Jack like randomly, like that's a bad way to look at it. It's like you might as well summon for her when she's on Raid-Up. Now, I understand that there are people that are like, they have like say NP4 Jack and they don't want to summon for Kama now, like they're going to summon next year because they have a servant coming out later that they really want to summon for, like Berserker Musashi. You have Reigns coming out, Waver's going on solo Raid-Up, Arjuna Alter is going to be coming out very soon. You have a lot of very powerful servants coming out later on the year, so do understand that that's also a viable thing to do. You should just skip Kama this year and summon for her next year, because the servants this year are very, very strong. The quality of servant is very high this year. So I can understand that sentiment. But starting off with like looking at their hits, I actually think Jack's hits are better than Kama's. Like starting off, just for free. Because you got to consider, like, yeah, I get Kama's deck is a bit more balanced. I would like her deck more than Jack's if she had 2 arts cards. If she had 2 arts cards, like if it was 2 quick, 2 arts, 1 buster, I would like her 1,000% more. But the problem is, these are quick servants. And quick servants, they're going to want to use their quick cards. And so who, pound for pound, is going to have the better quick card and get more mileage out of it? I don't know, maybe it's Jack with the higher NP charge, the higher star gen, 3 quick cards instead of just 2, and then 5 hits on those instead of 4, right? I'm pretty sure Jack just fits into the slot of being a quick servant better than Kama does, right? But that's also a strength of Kama, that because her deck is so balanced, you can use her outside of quick teams. Like I've used Kama without Scotty before, and she still performs very, very well. But you're going to be using these people primarily with, quick support, like with Scotty and people like that. And so for that purpose, Jack is going to be much, much better. And just, again, to say that like Jack's not bad, before Scotty came out, and Jack was my like go-to assassin, she would loop her NP with a quick chain. Like if you can get crits on her quick cards, she'll loop her NP. Because that NP charge stat right there, that is insane, dude. That is absolutely baffling. With these hits, you don't see that very often. I get that they made it so high because her arts cards only has 2 hits, right? That's why it's such a high NP charge. But I don't know if they were just like, quick cards are bad, they're not going to gen that much NP. But look where we're at in current meta. Now Jack can just spurg out and do her NP all over the place. So when you're looking at their hits, I think Jack's hits are better. I think she beats out Kama when it comes to hits, and hits are such a fundamental part of the game that winning in the hits department already makes you like really, really good. Like it already gives you a huge leg up against Kama here, right? But then we go into their skills. So they both have a survivability skill. I would say this is Kama's main survivability skill, and this is Jack's main survivability skill. And when it comes down to this, I'm going to give it to Kama because she can proc her guts, you know, and it never goes away, doesn't have a turn limit, and she also gets like a flat attack buff that she can use for like anything, which is pretty good. Whereas like Jack, sure, she's getting a better buff, right? She's getting 50% quick performance for 1 turn, but you have to waste your evasion, or vice versa. If you want to survive, you might waste your quick performance, and this is a huge part of her damage. Like it's so similar to like Raiko and like other characters like that, to where if you have to waste this to survive, like I understand that living and, you know, not dying in the challenge quest or in the run is preferable to, you know, losing, but you're giving up so much of your damage to like have the character live that it's really like annoying to deal with, right? So you have to give Kama the W here, right? It has to be a fat dub because her survivability skill is just better. Also, I would consider Guts probably the best version of survivability because, one, if you didn't know, if you have Guts and you proc the Guts, right, like the enemy kills you, they'll actually stop attacking for that turn. You have to do it in a specific way. Like, I believe the servant has to be in, like, slot 1 or something, or they have to be the only servant left. It's, like, either one of those two, and you proc the Guts, the enemy will stop attacking that turn after that, and they'll only use, like, their skills and whatnot. So, it's very good for that, and it kind of just bypasses the enemy having Pierce Invincibility or Sure Hit, because it's like, well, who cares if you have that, because I'll just live the attack anyway, and stop your attacks later on in the turn. So I do prefer Guts to things like Evasion or Invincibility, right? Obviously, they all get negged if they just remove your buffs, but that's why removing buffs is so powerful. So when it comes down to that, I think Kama definitely wins when it comes to survivability. Like, her skill is super, super good for that. Then, this skill is not terrible for Jack. It's not the worst thing, because this basically gives Jack essentially quote-unquote sure hit, or Pierce Invincible, or like she can get around Solemn Defense or Guts, because she'll just remove that enemy's buffs that she's going to attack. I think this is very, very good. Kama doesn't really have anything like this, right? She doesn't really have a way to get around somebody having buffs. You can't like pierce their invincibility, remove their buffs or anything. The best thing she can do is she can still charm lock them for that turn if you want to waste your NP, but that is, again, that's a pretty big waste of an NP, just to like use it to lock somebody down for a turn. So that's very good. That's a huge thing that Jack has. And then her third skill, and this is kind of where it's bad. This is where Jack's age really shows. It really is showing, because she only heals 2500 HP. It's a targetable heal, but it's like, and I guess it's technically better than Kama's, right? Because Kama has to lower somebody's max HP, but I mean, she's still giving them a stage of overcharge, which is very powerful. But then she's healing 4k of her own HP, which is massive, right? It's a huge, huge heal. And I think this is essentially like a dead skill for Jack. Like, they need to give something to buff this. The problem is like, what do you add on there? Is it targetable like NP gain? Does she give them crit star gen? Because you know people are just going to use this on Jack herself. So it's kind of hard to be like, what do we buff this with? Like more quick performance? That actually would be pretty good for her. NP damage, an attack buff, just something like that. Anything to buff this skill, because right now it's kind of an L of a skill. And I mean, it's just, when you look at her skills, it's like, so you have like, this is kind of like an L of a skill. Like, you can get some use out of it, but it's kind of an L. It's like, this is like good. It somewhat helps Jack out. But then you look at like Kama's kit, and it's just like NP charge. She gets her alter ego thing for 3 turns, crit damage, basically guarantees that she's going to charm with her NP. You know, has a superior survivability skill, gives herself an attack buff, which double buffs with her NP, by the way. And then, you know, has the ability to heal herself as well, can charge her own or in like allies overcharge with like a slight demerit, right? So her kit's just like built like better, right, than Jack's. And then we get to their NP, which Jack's NP, like, first of all, let me talk about this. So this is pretty good. This is like actually fine. This is not like bad or anything. It's like, again, like Jack's whole niche, her whole shtick, right? And something that I don't think people realize, when they have these buffs on their NP, it lasts the entire turn. So if Jack procs her NP, the following cards also have the bonus damage against females, right? So the 2 cards that follow, and like even the extra attack if you do a Brave Chain. So that's very, very good. Also, piercing defense, very, very good for those like annoying enemies that spam defense. It's like a very solid NP. But then like Kama's NP, I just think is better, because you're locking down an enemy with so even if you don't have her 3rd skill up, or you've already used the 1 like turn instance of your like charm boost, basically, you still have an 80% chance to charm, which is very high. And then every NP is getting subsequently stronger, because you're buffing your own quick performance by at bare minimum 20%, if not more, with like her 1st skill being up, which she can, you know, overcharge her own NP. It's targetable. So then you can be starting at 25%. Say you have like Scotty's NP ready to go as well, or you're running her with, I don't know, like Merlin or some weird other support servant for some reason. You're running her with somebody else. So then you can start off by getting like a 30% like quick buff, right? And that's very powerful, because it double buffs with like her attack buff and like her damage that she does against alter egos. She's like massively buffing how much damage she can do, right? And then she just has like little niche things like being immune to charms herself, giving her like little bits of like crit damage and debuff, and you know, all this like nice little stuff here and there. I believe, yeah, Jack only has the 1 passive skill. So it's like, I know this is kind of rare, but if you were to get Kama to full overcharge, she would actually be getting like 50% quick performance, which means at that point hers would be better than like Jack's mana burst, which I know that's very unlikely, because I mean, is it really all that unlikely actually? Because you can use something like Demonic Bodhisattva, which gives you 2 overcharge stages and 50% NP, so then you can pop Kama's 3rd skill, and you're starting at with her like 1st skill, you're starting at like overcharge 4, and then you either, if you have NP2 Kama, get her to 200%, or you just like use Scotty's NP first to then give you that overcharge 5. So actually, it's not even that unrealistic, actually, now that I think about it. So it's like, it's like Jack is very, very solid. She's not bad. Like, I think her hits are better. I think she's very, very solid. I think her kit is fine for like a unit of her age. It could definitely be a whole lot worse, but there's holes in it, right? Like, these are both very good effects, but they don't meld well on the same skill. This is good. This is one of those things that it's like, it's nice when people do it, but you want one more thing. Like, this would need to get buffed and get like an extra effect, right? This needs like one more thing, like maybe reduces that enemy's quick performance resistance, right? That would be good. And then maybe give this like, maybe just slap on like also removes debuffs as well, or something along those lines, because then that makes Jack a really good support servant, right? And it would actually further distinguish her from Kama, right? Because Kama's kind of like a solo type servant. Like, she's kind of good on her own, and she gets better when she has support, right? Whereas Jack's always kind of been the support servant, like the person you bring if you just want someone to drop a whole lot of stars and kind of be self-sufficient for her own. Like, Jack does kind of just take care of herself. I mean, kind of. I'm saying kind of, because I know it's like, she really just has the dodge, but I mean, like, she can gen her own NP because she's dropping all the stars and everything, so everybody's critting and everything. So that's kind of my take on Jack versus Kama. That's essentially everything that I've said. That's my take on why I think you should still summon for Kama over Jack. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments down below. I love kind of doing discussion videos like this where we get to compare servants and be like, well, who do we think is better, and who do we think is you know, like good or worth summoning for? I like doing this. It was really fun doing it for the 3 sabers, like the Arthur, Mordred, and Artoria. So hopefully we'll be able to do more of this as more servants come out. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, please leave a like and subscribe, all that good stuff. With that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace, late guys.